Lisa Christensen here with Watercolor Cards Live. I'm so happy to be here. Um, if you are joining me, I'll start really in about a minute or two. I'm just going to get some people in here and get started. And I'm excited to talk and chat and paint a little bit about all the fun card stuff that and watercolor. So, anyways, welcome. I am streaming from my lovely basement studio, and I'm so grateful for the space actually. So my husband built this studio for me when I just started like really wanting to get into back into my art. So I'm grateful for it, and it is in the basement, but I have this nice lovely spot upstairs by the kitchen where I can paint as well, because another artist that I truly admired was like, oh, just get yourself a little table and paint when you're working on house stuff and attending to kids and stuff. And I have enjoyed that little spot too, and it's right by a southwestern window, so I get lots of natural light when I want to paint. And then in my studio, I have all my my non-natural light. But anyways, I'm happy to be here. I hope you guys enjoy this, and we'll start in just a little bit. I just wanted to get some people started and get in, and yeah, so it's nice to meet you guys. Yes. All right. If there's any questions, feel free to ask them. I am happy to answer any questions, and I actually can see the questions now, so that makes it nice. And other than that, I'm just, yeah, happy to be here. All right, well, let's get started. I'm sure more will show up, and it is that time to start. All right, so today is all about brushes. Oh my gosh, I have all these brushes. Look at all these fun brushes that I have. There's really, seriously, you do not need all of these brushes. But they are so much fun. I'm gonna switch my camera around in just a little bit and show you the wonderful ways I like to use these brushes. You by no means need all of them, but they all have a function in my art toolkit, and they all do different things, and that's why I have so many. So I'll go through them in this next 45-ish minutes or so, and we'll just enjoy the process to see a little bit more. I'm going to zoom in just a tad bit, and we'll be rolling. So you might be wondering, do I really need to spend a lot of money on brushes? And the answer by far is absolutely not. Do not buy a brush if you don't think you're going to use it. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. When I started watercoloring, I thought, oh, I need all these awesome brushes, and that's really what's going to make my art stand out. And I tell you what, brushes did not do that for me. So if you think a brush is going to change how you paint, you are wrong. Think of it more as a vehicle or a tool than like an easy button, right? It just takes a lot of practice and a lot of time to get our brushes right. So to get our paints, our just to get our like our brushwork handy. Like there's a practice between with brushwork and with brushes, but the brushes will only do what your hand and eye can do, right? So don't go out and spend lots and lots of money. I'll tell you, this one is a really cheap brush. It's a size 4 from Artist Loft. It's like the Michaels brand. It's like a craft brush, right? But I use this all the time. I use this in my plein air painting, and I love it. I actually sharpen the end of it. You see it? It looks like I literally sharpened the end of it so I could get like a nice point, so I can like make scratches on my watercolor paper if I wanted to have like a scratch for like nature, grass, or whatever. And so I do that, but there's no problem with this brush. I mean, I've used this many times and it still works, right? I can get a thin line, I can get a thick line, I can make a weird, whatever shape I need it to do. This is just a nice workhorse brush. There's nothing wrong with it. And I enjoy this brush. And this was probably from an art kit that I stole from my kids' art kit. I don't know. I just it works and it holds up well. So don't mess, don't underestimate the cheap brushes. I would rather spend my money on pigment and paper, and I would rather spend my money on paper. And here's another one. This one came in like another kit, and the tip though is really nice. I really like the tip. And so again, it does not matter the color. It does not matter necessarily. The the quality isn't there, but I'm not looking for quality. I'm looking for if it'll do my brush strokes, right? And maybe I'll go ahead and see what it does when I, press it down and want watercolor, so it works. It works for what I need it to do. No problem there. And these are just round brushes. Round brushes are very, like, you can get them anywhere. This is a size 8 round. This is from Princeton, and this is a select round. It's a little bit, it's not as stiff as this brush. Stiffer brushes usually are for acrylic or oil, but I like to use stiff brushes for watercolor because I get a nice line or a nice brushwork with it. This one, you can tell the difference. So I will often look at the brush, the actual length of the brush, because the longer the brush is, the more water it's going to hold. So for example, if I were to just get some paint and just do a line, it does what it needs to do. Now if I did that the whole time, like on a bigger piece of paper, it might not. But this one is a size 8, and you will notice a bigger difference. I can get a thinner line or a thicker line just by the pressure. And so that's why you would want a longer brush, is so you could get that pressure that you're looking for. Whereas here, I would not be getting that pressure. Like, that's as much as the pressure as I'm going to get. So that's why I like the longer bristles on brushes. And normally, if it's a watercolor brush, the bristles are going to be longer. Yeah. I do not see your guys' comments. So if you're commenting, I am so sorry. I cannot see them. I don't know why. Facebook is giving me such a hard time with that. But if you do have questions, ask them. And in about 30 minutes after the video is over, I will answer them. But I don't know why my lives won't show the questions. So anyways, welcome if you are here. I'm so happy you are here. So round brushes are by far my favorite brushes. I have 8s and 10s, and then I'll go with smaller ones, like the cheaper ones. I also like to have, when I'm painting, I usually like to use a 10 and a 6 or an 8. Each brand is a little bit differently. Like, this is both by Princeton, and they both say they're 8, but it looks like it still looks like this one is a little bit larger than this one. So, you buy them at different times. Kind of like, a dye lot. If you buy like a skein of yarn that's like yellow ochre, and then it's lot, I don't know, 1010, and then you need some more, and you can't find that dye lot, and it's 1012. It's kind of sort of same thing with brushes. You get the size, but it might not be perfect, and that's okay. It's a general standard. It's not like someone's going in and counting all the bristles and saying, okay, there's 8,000 little bristles in a size 8. Like, it's a general standard. All right, so another type of brush that I enjoy, they're called different things. This one's called a filbert. Sorry, too close. A filbert brush by Princeton. It doesn't matter what brand. I do like the Princeton brand, and you'll see that I have a bunch of Princeton brand, but I'm not brand specific. It just kind of happened. But a filbert, I like filberts because they kind of take a beating. There's 2 different ways I like to use filberts. I like to use filberts by taking away watercolor, like making the edges blurred, right? Like, that's one way to use a filbert. Another way that I like to use a filbert is by using like to use for florals, which I did that floral live video about 2 weeks ago, and I used filbert for that. And so same sort of thing. And then why not just add a little, center. They just give you more of an organic look to it because it's oval and not flat and not round. So it's a really nice in between a flat and a round brush, and I really truly enjoy it. And again, that's a filbert. This one is a size 10, and I'm happy to use a size 10 in my card making. Another, so this is so another way they also will you can buy brushes is by like inches. So this is a 1/2 inch brush. I could go with a 1/4 inch. It could go with a full inch brush, but really truly I look at how, like, I will in the brush aisle, I'll take my time at the brush aisle. My kids will be like, "Mom, are you done yet?" "Not the brush aisle." "No, not the brush aisle," because I will take my time. But I will look and be like, okay, how much pressure, how far is it gonna go, on the piece of paper. So if I'm looking for a bigger brush, this is probably not gonna do it. This one will cover a lot more. And so I will take my time and decide which oval brush do I need the most, right? And then buy the ones. As far as cost effectiveness goes, when it comes to brushes, I buy what is best for my money, right? There's no easy button. There's no like, oh, this brush is the best brush because it's cheap and it does everything. It will, but it might not last as long. However, round brushes tend to lose their tip, their effectiveness of their tip. And so I don't spend as much money on round brushes as I would on oval brushes. Oval brushes I will definitely spend more money on because I want the tip to stay nice, and the more money at brushes usually means the more quality it is. Grumbacher, who did this, is a really good brand of brushes. I still have some Grumbacher acrylic brushes that I've had when I was in illustration school right out of high school. So lots of good brushes, but I do take my time, and I do spend a little bit more money on my oval brushes than I do on my round brushes. So oval brushes, round brushes, and then I like to go into flats. Like this is a flat, and this is a flat. They are both, so this is a 1/2 inch brush, and this is a 1 inch brush. And the difference between these two brushes, besides the fact the size is 1/2 inch and a full inch, is that this, again, has a very small, this is the barrel, but the actual brush size, like the bristles part, is smaller. Like the difference is like this one will hold way more water than this one, just because of the brush, the size of the bristles, the length of the bristles, not the necessary size. I like flat brushes for washes. I can take a simple, well, I just did a wash with this brush. I'll find it. With this, and it took me about a minute. It took me a minute to just shoot, 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 and it's done. And then I added gold foil on it, and I'm just waiting for it to like tell me what else it needs. It needs a lot of things, but I love the foil. Anyways, it's just really easy to like swipe color across, and just be done with it. So that's why I like flat brushes for big areas of washes. All right, moving on. I enjoy, so this can be considered a mop brush. A mop brush I thought was the same as an oval brush until I started using it, but these two, and this one is totally different. A mop brush is a little bit less stiff. It's a lot more loose, and I got this brush. It does not have a brand on it, so I don't know exactly where I got this brush, but I got this because I wanted to make really pretty organic florals, but without the stiffness. So, for example, I can just make a really fun little circle, and it's going to look very florally. Look at that. It almost looks like a tulip or a rose, even if I added a little bit more color. And I also can do kind of more of a Japanese painting look to it. And so I like having a variety of brushes, so when I know exactly what I want to do, I can just get it done, you know. Um, but this one's a fun one. It is, you can't really control the brush strokes, so it's very loose. You can use it for very loose paintings. But it's called a mop brush. I have other mop brushes that don't look like it, but they're very loose. Here is a mop brush. This is a very big one. This is a Neptune mop brush. And I can see why they kind of look the same. They don't feel the same. They don't act the same. I use this in landscapes for bigger paintings. So like if I'm doing a 9x12 and I just want to get beautiful color on the paper and I want the paper to run, this also, or I want the watercolor to run into each other, this is beautiful. This is a synthetic squirrel brush, and I love it. I use it all the time in my plein air paintings when I'm out and painting for plein air. I got its little brother to go with it. Here's a size 20, here's a size 8. You probably can't tell much of a difference until you pick it up, but there's a huge difference. And this is actually, they're still Princeton Neptunes, but they are a different brand. So this is like a round mop brush. This is a mop brush and it's round, but it's made differently. Like right here, you can tell the barrels are different. So that means there's a lot more bristles in this barrel than here. So this is going to hold a lot more water, and this one's going to just get flatter, and like they're both beautiful brushes. I love them for bigger paintings. All right, let's go into script brushes. So this is an Escoda Versatile script liner brush. So a liner brush, if you're used to liner brushes, you will say that is not a liner brush. It is a liner brush, but it's like a size 20. But normal liner brushes will look like this. They're teeny tiny little liners that you use for little details. Like, and I always like to get them wet because you can kind of see what what I mean. Like they're teeny tiny. They have a long bristle, and they're meant for details. They're meant to use it for details. Sometimes people will use it for brush lettering, especially this one. This is a size 2, and it's a liner. And you can do like really pretty calligraphy. Maybe I went pretty fast on that, but it holds a lot of water because there's a lot of bristle length to it, and you can go a long way with it. And you can meander, kind of like what you do with quill, and you won't really lose that pigment. And I just love it for so many things. Liner brushes are my favorite. But normally when we talk about liner brushes, we were talking about a thin little liner brush. This is not a thin liner brush. Like, you would say that those two brushes are not the same brushes. However, this one you can almost use as like a round brush, which I do often. And I'll just paint like maybe an ocean scene or something. I love indigo. But you can see just by the way I use my brush, if I put a lot of pressure on, I'll be able to get like a whole bunch of paper coverage. But if I just use a little tiny line, then I can get a little, there's just a lot of versatility in this brush that I really enjoy. And I'm just going to go all the way up, and it will be like an abstract, a blue-ish card. Maybe I'll use it for a masculine birthday card or something. I don't know, but I love these cards. I love this brush because I can just really play with my lines and my texture, and it's just a lot of fun. And I recommend getting one of these brushes. It's an Escoda Versatile size, I want to say like 18 liner brush. And if they don't go, it's the biggest liner brush they sell. So if they don't go up to 18, then it might only go up to 10. But they are absolutely my favorite. And then I can go in with this little liner brush and just get some more of my little lines. And you can kind of see the difference between the two. Kind of fun, right? Yeah, I think that'll actually look like a really fun little masculine card for something. I don't know. I'll play around with it. Maybe I'll add some iridescent colors to it. All right, so liner brushes are something that I enjoy using. Usually you use it for details at the very end of your project, but not always. Like with this one, I can use it for, I can use this instead of a round brush. Okay, and then I have kind of my specialty brushes. These are my specialty brushes. This is maybe not a specialty brush, but it is, in my opinion. It's a squirrel. It has squirrel hair. So yes, this is squirrel hair, and I am so grateful for squirrels. They don't really serve a purpose except for the fact that they like to grow trees, and I love squirrels, don't get me wrong, but they also like to plant trees in my garden. That is not so much fun. But squirrel hair will hold so much water, and I dumped out all my water. So let me show you. Like I just love squirrel brushes. If you really want like a natural look to your paintings, I would highly recommend a squirrel brush. And I know, but there's nothing better than I think having a nice brush that can do what you want it to do. And if only, I only get one squirrel brush. This is my only squirrel brush that I have, and I just love it. And I'm grateful for that squirrel. So anyways, yeah, and it's just nice. It just glides across the paper, lovely. You can't really get this any other way, the experience of painting with a squirrel brush, unfortunately. Yeah, and I mean, artists have used squirrel brushes for a very, very long time. Anyways, maybe it's inhumane to have a squirrel brush, but it's there. They're not. They are a little expensive for what they are, but I do enjoy a squirrel brush. Anyways, and then this is an Escoda Versatile, and then this is I do not know what they call it. It's a very specialty brush, but what I love about it is, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this over so you guys can see, is when I get a nice big puddle, I can get a flat wash. This is great for like backgrounds. I can get look at this tip. Like I can manipulate this tip like any way I want. And look at how much water it's giving me. Like I can go and just keep going, and it won't have to worry about the different tonal values changing from dipping my water, or changing my water to pigment ratio. And so I love this brush for backgrounds, for washes. It's just a really lovely brush. It's synthetic, so no squirrels were harmed. And I am very grateful for all the brushes. Like, this is such a fun brush to paint with. This is not a brush I necessarily think you need, but man, it sure is fun to paint with. And I can just enjoy. So anyways, here's my flat wash that I am making it way more complicated than it needed to be. But I don't like flat washes. I like energy washes, so I put color down and then I add more color. Jean Haynes will tell you about that. But anyways, all right, so that's that brush. Another nice thing about that brush is you can get your different lines Like I can get a really thick line and a really thin line. Let me show you. I'll show you with red. Maybe I'll go with this one. So I got this beautiful red going, and so I can go with a very thin line or a very thick. I think that my red is about out. I probably could add more. Let's go into yellow. Why not? So, yeah. So really pretty for florals too. I'll have to experiment this with different florals and leaves maybe. I could see that being really pretty for like a fall leaf. Maybe another fall leaf right there. So play with your brush marks. I just released a video on YouTube on how I use different brushes to make different backgrounds just with lines. One is a plaid and one is a like an abstract like motif, just with lines and color. Quilters use lines and color all the time in their quilting, and I like to kind of bring that same design aspect into my watercolor. So anyways, lots of ways to brush handle different colors, brushes, right? Using different brushes. Let's see, what else? Oh, the fan brush. I can't forget the fan brush. This one's a fun one. If you are, if you like to paint pine trees, I have a wonderful video on YouTube on painting fast pine trees with this particular brush actually, and this is one particularly is a size 6 fan brush, and it's a Robert Simmons Sapphires fan brush. I honestly could not tell you where I got this brush. I may have gotten it online. I may have not have gotten online. I do get most of my brushes from Blick Art Supplies, and I left a link in the description on for Blick. So if you are looking for brushes, check Blick out. They always have really good deals on brushes. Maybe this should have been a green-ish tree, but we'll start with blue and go. Maybe I'll add some green. But so it's a wet brush, and I just have some indigo on my brush. But this is how I like to use. This is one way I like to use a fan brush, and I will just, here's my top. Maybe here's my bottom of my evergreen tree. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm just going to use the very tip of that brush, right, just like that, and I'm going to kind of dot and move my brush around a little bit. It has been a little while since I have painted with a fan brush, but then eventually, now I can just rock it back and forth, and I get this really pretty look that you can't really get anywhere else. I just love fan brushes for this. And of course the painting has a mind of its own, so I'm totally going way past my guideline, but that's okay. Sometimes it's fun just to paint. But anyways, I will use this brush for all of my, look at that beautiful Christmas tree, and it took me less than a minute. So I'm going to add some of this yellow into this blue just to get some green. Add some of this warmth back into this Christmas tree, huh? I'm going to do the same thing, and then my colors are going to start to blend and bleed together, and that's going to look really pretty. Anyways, I have a full tutorial on how I actually do this, and I explain kind of my process a little bit more, but I do love a fan brush for this, and I think I'm going to add a little bit more yellow. I just need it to be a little bit more greener. And I'm trying to keep my white space as well. Okay. I think that's probably going to be pretty good. So fan brushes are fantastic. The other way I like to use fan brushes, and we'll just make this into a wild Lisa landscape. A dreamy landscape. Alright, so I'm going to make sure that this is pretty dry. I don't really feel a whole lot of water. I'm gonna just get my bristles flat again, shape them to, I want to be able to see more of the bristles. I don't like that. Okay, And this gets a little bit tricky. I need the paint to be a little not so wet. So if it's too wet, it's not going to work. But on my palette, you can see that I'm making brush strokes, right? You can see the brush strokes and it's staying. That's about the consistency that you want, so it's not a lot of water. And I'm just kind of mixing in whatever's on my palette because I want like a natural green. So we're going to go with that. My brush still looks very like it got a haircut or something. And then what I like to do is I'm going to paint grass. So there's my grass. And the more I brush it up, the more denser it's going to be at the bottom and lighter brush strokey-ish at the top. So I could go in and just keep doing this. I'm gonna have to add some more pigment. You'll get to that point where it's like, oh, I don't think there's any more pigment on my brush. There's something like that. Now, granted, I would not. This is not necessarily a card I would do, but you could have like one meadow of tall green, bluish, whatever grass, Kentucky grass, right? Here. And I'm going to go into my, it's a very dry brush. Right? And then maybe in the distance, there's a little bit more yellow. And my brush is a little bit too wet, so I'm going to let the towel soak it up a little bit. I want a little bit of green, but not a lot of green, so I'm just mixing in my palette. And then maybe I could do something like that. Ooh, look at that, that's looking really pretty. Yeah, so you can see just by playing around with color and your brush strokes, you can get this really pretty look just by using the fan brush. I do love using a fan brush, don't get me wrong. I don't always use a fan brush. I don't think it's a needful thing unless you really, really love landscapes. Like the trees and the grass is about it for the fan brush. Sometimes my Alexis Levine, who is one of my watercolor mentors, will take two colors. We'll say red, because I got red right here, and we'll take this yellow, and then she will blend this together, and you get a nice blend. But you have to be really careful, like it's a one and done sort of thing, and you just have to let it be. So that's also another way that I like to use fan brushes. Yeah, and it does, it blends it really nice. But once it's blended, you're done. You gotta wait for this to dry a little bit more. So you gotta, like, if you're blending two colors together, then you gotta let the fan brush dry if you're gonna do two other different colors. So I like fan brushes. I use them enough that it warrants one, but I don't need like 5 different fan brushes. I need like one. Another brush that I keep forgetting that is probably one of my favorites is this large round. It is a large round, but it's from Velvet Touch, and it reminds me of like a calligrapher's pen almost, because I can take, I have a little bit of purple on my palette. I can take this brush and I can get a really fine line. I like to use it for trees. And I really love this tip. Like, I take very good care of this brush because I love the tip. I mean, who doesn't want a long brush with a small tip? But also, as fine as this tip is, and oftentimes when I want that really fine line, I'll take my pinky and I'll hold it either on the paper, wherever I want it to be, and I'll just, my pinky holds my fingers in place and my wrist in place, so I can get that perfect little line that I want. And but it's such a great little tip. Another way that I like to use it is I will take this and I can make a fun mark just with the whole brush, just by the pressure. So that's really fun too, and I enjoy that. Otherwise, I'm sorry we did not get a really fun. Let's do a fun little motif. Let's do like a leaf motif, and I'll use this one for last. I'll use this as a end thing, and we'll play with different shapes. I will use this as an oval brush, and I do often like to use a round brush, but I think you've seen everyone use a round brush many times. How about we use a swirl brush, a swirl round brush, so you can kind of see the difference. And I'm going to bring in a couple colors. I'll bring in Scarlet Lake, which is not alizarin crimson. Scarlet Lake is very, very bright, like tomato red bright. And I will take, this is a deep sap green, which is a really pretty green color. And I'll put that right there. And I have a little bit of yellow in my palette, so I think I'm good there. And let's see. I think I have, ooh, we'll try garnet red. Garnet red would be really pretty. This is actual Primatech garnet. So it has minerals, like I'm painting with garnets, red garnets. So that'll be really pretty. All right. Let's start with, I feel like paintings are kind of like recipes. The better ingredients you put into your paintings, the more likely it's going to succeed. Now I take that with a grain of salt, because you're only as good as your hand-eye comp. Yeah, your how you paint, right? So a pretty brush is only going to make it so it's that way. Anyways, and I feel like this is such a wonderful mindfulness activity too. So what I'm doing is I'm doing 2 sets, and I'm kind of just gonna make like a nice big triangle without it really looking like a triangle. So 1, 2, 3, there's the triangle, right? And then I can go in with a different color. So you saw that I did a little bit of pressure. I'm going to tone down this green a little bit with the red, and that'll give me a muted green. So a little bit of pressure, right? And then pressure a lot, and then a little bit of pressure. If you are new to florals, you probably are trying to practice that technique, but it just takes a little bit of time. Whoosh, so pretty. And I will often turn my paper. Don't worry, we are not done yet. We got lots of, all right, so there's a nice beautiful squirrel brush. Now if I try with a regular round brush, we'll go with this one. Here's a round Princeton 8 brush, so a little bit smaller than the 12, and we can do the same thing. Maybe I'm going to do a little bit more brighter green, but it's not gonna give me the same results. This is just a little bit smaller. It works. But I do like how the squirrel brush made me feel. It felt pretty good. Okay. Let's see. I'm so sorry I cannot see any questions. I don't know if I thought I had it fixed, and apparently I did not. But pressure, and then less pressure. pressure, and then less pressure. And this is looking like a hot mess right now, but I think it'll get better as the time goes on. It's just an all over pattern. I just whatever green was on my brush, I just dipped into the yellow, because in nature you do have really bright yellow leaves, and I have seen those, but we also have a lot of muted yellows, and so I wanted just a neutral yellow. Yeah. And so now at this point, I'm abandoning all hope. No, that's not true. I am letting the watercolor speak to me, and because I think yellow is like my the color that's gonna just kind of like unify the whole piece, I'm adding more yellow. This like dingy neutral yellow, which works. I think fall and the muted colors are actually really pretty. And maybe I will add some smaller yellow leaves. I'm liking that. And what I think I'm gonna do, I'll leave that alone for now. And it looks like it just looks like a bunch of leaves doing something. But that's okay. I'm going to add a lot more to it, or a little bit more to it. I'm going to take some of this iridescent. This is Duochrome Autumn Mystery. I'm going to add a little bit of that. And I'm going to take my really pretty Princeton brush that's really long, and I'm going to add details to my leaves. And once I'm done with that, then I'll add some extra something. And I also have that garnet that I want to use. So we'll start with the dark red garnet. I think that will be a really pretty, and I don't want drippy paint. So I'm being very careful, and I just want, oh, see, there's a drippy paint. That's the only thing I don't love about this brush, but that's okay. We'll just make it part of the, and I could have maybe watched my water to paint ratio, and I'm even going to do this to the gray leaves, the greenish leaves, and I don't love that blob, but it happens. So lucky for me, paint will lift up. There we go. Now I can go in with a thicker consistency of this. There we go. And it might bleed a little bit. Maybe I want a couple veins. I don't want to go overboard. Yeah. I mean, this is probably, it's not overkill yet. I'm not there yet. I might be. But you just let the brush do the work. You just, okay, you have an idea of in your mind where you want your lines to be, and you just let the brush do your work. If you try to coerce the brush into doing something you don't want it to do, it's going to look that way. So the more natural you can make it look, the better. Oh, I just love fall for all of its beautiful leaves and textures. I'm really loving this garnet, and I love it so much that I want to add probably some berries. So let's add some berries. I go on walks and I see berries all the time, and I don't always know when to add it, except for this needs a line. I think the best thing about, and so you'll notice my pinky is out. It doesn't need to stabilize, and I don't want my pinky to get on paint and then smudge it. So I am using my wrist to stabilize a little bit. If you have shaky hands, practice your hills and valleys. So you're just practicing. And then eventually you'll be like, ooh, see how much paint is on that brush? Like, I could go on and on and on with this, but it's just amazing how much paint will hold this in this brush. I like little berries. It kind of breaks up the mood. And this garnet, oh my gosh. If you haven't worked with any kind of Primatech colors, I recommend starting with garnet. I seem to use it a lot. Garnet or jade. And they're both very fun fall and Christmassy colors anyways, that it's hard to pass up. But these are the ways I like to do my berries. I like them to look very sketchy and painterly. You might be like, what is she doing? And it's because that's why I like to paint my berries that way. I also don't like them all to be the same size. And if I could do too many berries, then it looks like I went berry crazy. So I gotta stop myself. But I like to use this brush for all those little details. But I can also use my liner, which I like to use my liner for like the very end, because this tip and this tip, I'm going to get a totally different look, right? So let's go in. I'm going to go in with this really dark green and add just a couple little lines. If you're looking, I'm pressing my bristle. I'm pressing my bristle all the way down into my green, right like that. So I'm getting a full, like my whole bristle is full of, and now my, no, it just, this lighting is sometimes not my favorite anyways. And I don't feel like I have to work as hard with a liner brush. But I can still, it's just fun to play with. Whoosh. Sometimes I have to make sound effects with my brush. Do you guys? I'd like to know. Anyways, I'd also love to know, what's your favorite fall activity? I feel like fall is gonna be gone and I'm gonna have felt like I missed it. I'm taking my kids to the zoo tomorrow. I'm hoping that they'll let me sketch some animals while they're looking at animals. And I don't like to rush them, because as soon as I rush them, then I feel like the animal does something. I'm like, oh man, you could have saw that, you know? So we try to take our time at the zoo, but that doesn't always equal to me being able to sketch. So I'd love to know your fall activities. I do love going to the zoo in the fall. I feel like the animals are much more active. Okay, I'm loving that. Now I can go back in with that beautiful autumn mystery gold that I like teased you with. This is the autumn mystery, and it's just a really pretty iridescent, well, it's autumn mystery for a reason, because it has this really red look to it. And I just kind of go in and I just kind of glaze over certain things. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. But I woke up with this color palette in mind, and I could not get it out of my head. So apparently I needed to paint with these muted colors. Maybe. So at this point I'm just looking to see what the painting needs. And there's no right way, there's no wrong way. I'm just moving my paper around to say, oh yeah, okay, we can do that. If I did that, maybe I'll do that one. That right there. I really love this, so maybe I'll just go on the other side of that. And I just keep going around and around and around. Now this does, and then when I feel like I'm pretty good, I don't know, I feel like I could spend hours but I don't have that kind of time, and I don't think my recipient will care. They want a handmade card by me, and they want to feel loved, and I think this will do it. Oh, do you guys quilt? I have started quilting, and Joan, Ginny Dawn, anyways, from Missouri Quilt Company. She's like, finish is better than perfect. And with quilting, you'll just put something away because you're like, oh, it's not perfect. I can't, give it away. But finished is better than perfect. And so I've taken that with my watercolor. Like, is this perfect? No. Do I love it? Did I have fun? Absolutely I did. So why not leave it before you think it's done? It's probably done before it is. Now I'm just going to splatter some of this beautiful autumn mystery because I like splatter. And I'm just using a script. You can use whatever brush you have. And that's too much in one spot. So I got a couple options. It's just gonna have some beautiful autumn mystery at this corner. And if I did it to that corner, I'm gonna have to do it. I'm gonna have to move it up and around, which is fine. That's part of the process. There. Moving along. Okay. Alright, I think if I do much more splatter, I'm going to wish I had it. So, I'm going to call that done. And I then put my brushes away. Now, when I'm done with my brushes, I clean my brush really good with my with whatever water's in my water. My water's looking pretty murky. I don't really care. But what I do care is I do not want to put my brush up. I want it to lay down on my towel. That's why I always have a towel on, because then if the brush dries, I know that the water is getting out of the barrel, inside the barrel, like right here. This is all glue. And the more water that gets into this barrel, it kills your brush. It like literally will murder your brush. And so to keep them nice, you want to keep them flat. You don't want them up in a jar. You can keep them up in a jar if they're totally dry and you're not using them, but if they are wet, lay them flat. That will be your best bet. So like even this, like it's not completely dry, it's going on a towel. And then when it's done drying, I will pick it up and I continue to leave them flat. I never leave my brushes upright because I want them to stay nice for a long time. I've had this one for 2 years and it still looks brand new because I've kept it nice and clean. So anyways, just some thoughts. Now if you are feeling like this is still not done, I'm still not feeling the done part of it yet. You can go in and just add more little details. I'm afraid to add much more detail, but I do feel like there's like little bits that I can't. But for now, I think it's great. I think it looks good. I'm afraid that if I add more, it's gonna look like I overdid it, and that's the last thing I want it to look like. So I better leave it the way it is. I'll cut it down to size, and then I'll post the actual finished product when I'm done. Like this is probably a 4x4, so I'm gonna have to trim down my card base a little bit, or it might be a 5x5, but it's not a perfect A2 size because this is scrap paper from another project I was working on, but perfect for painting a fall motif. Anyways, if you guys have any questions, please ask. I will definitely answer them once the video is totally done. I don't know why I can't see any comments. I love being with you guys, but there is no way I'm seeing any comments. And if I try one more thing, maybe I can see. Yeah, I am not seeing any. Oh, well that could, I don't know. I'm so sorry. I wish I could see the comments. Now I can. Oh my gosh, you guys. Okay, I can finally see your comments. I'm going to answer them right now. Um, oh, Laura, I'm so sorry. Paint with me. It's all good. And yes, I know everyone wants fancy cards. Yes, um, I agree. Fancy cards, I think, is in the eye of the beholder, but I'm so grateful for that. All right, I'm so glad I can see your comments now. Okay, so you asked what size of brush I had. Um, these brushes range from all over, but round brushes in general, I like anywhere from like a 6 to a 20, but the most I use normally is a size 12. Like this is a size 12, and then like smaller ones I like are like this is an 8. So like when I say a small and medium round brush, that's what I mean. Like it's like usually 12 and 6 or 15 and 7, something to that effect. Oh, I'm so glad you enjoyed the class. Thank you, Laura. I appreciate it. Yeah. Oh, you guys are very welcome. Um, I thank you, Lisa. I wish I could say that this painting makes, yes, I try to explain how painting works. Um, get a brush, any watercolor, and just do these leaves. And it looks effortless because I mean, these leaves, I paint these leaves every day for in the fall because I love painting leaves. I can't get over the beauty of leaves. So, and they're just fun. They're therapeutic for me. So I appreciate that. That's very sweet of you. Anyways, enjoy. And if you have any other questions, please comment. And I'm so grateful to have you here. Anyways, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.